Hey guys, it's Brian Jodas with Pick Up the Six podcast. I'll make this brief because I want to get right to this episode. On Wednesday of this week, I reported to prison. I was part of a program that was mentoring to men. And part of that group was my friend Victor, who was going back to prison, the very same one he had served 10 years at. It was an incredible day. Victor and I are going to share this amazing story with you on this episode of Pick Up the Six podcast. Victor, what's up, brother, man? Good to have you back.
Hey, man, good to be back. Glad you're able to
I know, bro.
make it back home.
We're here, man. This is a little different, guys. Usually my setting looks a little bit different. I'm in the same studio, but just put a different feel to it today, and you'll understand why as we get into our conversation. And typically you hear me say a bunch of things at the front of the show, and you hear a bunch of advertisers. But for this one, we're jumping right into the conversation. I got my man Victor Sauceda on the phone. And dude, Victor's been on the show before. He and our buddy Leo were on before talking about this incredible program where they go into men's prisons and train these guys up with entrepreneur skills, with job skills, with resume writing. And this week, Victor and I went into prison. And this week, Victor went back to prison, where 4 years ago at the Monroe Correctional Complex, he walked out a free man. And on Wednesday of this week, he walked back in a free man to mentor to these men. And we wanted to figure out how to best package us up and share it on the podcast. And I thought, you know what? If Victor's willing, why don't we just sit down and just sort of get our thoughts out after being in there for 6 hours with these guys? And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're here for, right? He and I are just going to talk about our experience, our shared experience, and our unique experiences as we went into a men's correctional facility to mentor to these guys. 17 men a part of it that day, over 30 volunteers. I'll tell you more about exactly why we were going in there. But Victor, first and foremost, man, you walked back into that building where you spent time, years.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like going in there the other day?
Yeah, man, it was just a lot of emotion. I didn't know what to think going into the prison. I was mentally prepared as possible, but it's just hard to think about all the unknowns, walking through those gates, walking through the metal detector, and, my metal detector going off 2 times right when I get there. I'm just like, okay, this is going to be an experience.
Yeah.
But then, just getting in and seeing all the guys, it was just an amazing experience. I want to unpack it all, which I'm sure we'll do in a bit, but yeah, just excited for the opportunity to go back in and serve the people that I once, promised to go back to.
You're a cool, calm, collected individual, but I saw nerves on you as we were getting ready to go in, right? It just and understandably, right? I mean, when was the first time you went in there? I know when you got out, 2019, but when did you get there, and what got you there?
You're talking about when I first went into prison?
That's right.
So I went into prison at the age of 21 years old. It was back in 2021 or 2012. Sorry about that.
Yep.
2012, and honestly, I remember that day quite well, like the back of my hand, because I was 21, as I mentioned. I was looking at a 36-year prison sentence as a result of what I did. It was a New Year's party, just out with one friend, celebrating and just enjoying the night. It was a typical New Year's night. Didn't think anything of it. We go to a party, and honestly, there's an individual wearing a Raiders jacket, a football team. And my buddy, he was a big Seahawks fan, so that just kind of started the rivalry there. And they're actually playing that weekend, so they started talking smack to each other. One of them didn't, like the way the other one was talking. The next thing you know, there's a group of individuals surrounding us, and these were rival gang members at the time. And I was just like, oh my God, like what do we get into? So it's 2 of us, and there's probably like 10 or 12 of them, completely outnumbered. But I know I didn't want anything to happen to my friend. And although I wasn't that big of a Seahawks fan, I did have my so-called friends back at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I did what I thought was going to be best. I pulled out my gun. And I was like, hey, like, we're not going to do any of that. Like, we're leaving. And they didn't want any problems. As soon as they seen the gun, they're just like, okay, we're gonna leave it alone. But then as soon as we started walking away, they started throwing rocks and stuff at us. And I was, drunk and under the influence at the time, and just turned around and started shooting at them. Thankfully my gun jammed after 3 shots. I didn't think anybody got hit, but a week later, the Seattle gang department was surrounding my house, I got brought into prison. And as I mentioned, I was 21, looking at a 36-year prison sentence. So that's kind of how it started. And then from there, something had to change. I took that whole 10-year prison sentence that I ended up getting it dropped down to, but even 10 years at 21 is still a long time. I had some time to think about it, and just thankful for the opportunities. I never thought I would say that prison was a blessing, but it was definitely something that I needed at the time.
It's incredible. One of the things I noticed when we were there on Wednesday is that oftentimes it can just be one mistake like that. And look, the reason why you had a firearm on you, we don't even need to get into that. It's not really that relevant to me for the purpose of this story. You're talking about gang people being at a party. I got to imagine you're running around in some pretty tough areas and concerned for your safety and maybe your friend. And in that moment, right, you go to get your friends back. Yeah. Pulling the piece at the time actually gave you the exit out of there, right? Gave you the exit out of there. But then in that moment of emotion, testosterone, everything gets flowing. Those rocks get thrown at you, pull the piece, fire up a couple rounds. Someone gets hit, 36 years. And there you go at 21 into that building, facing what could have been a lot longer time.
Right.
I know you've probably thought about it a lot, and man, God, we should just left. Probably shouldn't even had it on me,
Exactly.
All that stuff.
Yeah, plenty of time to think about it. And I did, I was just like, okay, well, how am I going to make the best out of this situation? I know I got, thankfully a release date. There's individuals that we met when we went into the facility this week, and they weren't ever getting out. So I'm just, really thankful that I did have the opportunity to get in there, to apply myself, to become a better person. And then, get out and make an impact. Like that's what a lot of these individuals want to do as well. And I'm just, thankful that I had the opportunity to release and, live out my plan.
Yeah. We're going to give you more context as to why we're actually there. What did you do? What factors helped you go from 36 years to 10, right? Because a 21-year-old going in at 36, bro, you're not getting out to you're almost 60. Imagine that.
Yeah.
We saw some guys the other day. You're right. We saw some guys the other day that I'm at 18. I got 20 to go. I'm at 40. I don't know. Right. So what got 36 to 10 for you? And my guess is part of the reason why we were there maybe factored into that.
Yeah. The 36 to 10 is honestly just how our system is built, our justice system. They give you what they call a public defender, which is just like a free lawyer as soon as you get incarcerated. And how the 36 years got dropped down to 10, they initially dropped it down to 20 with the public defender. And the public defender said, hey, that's all I could give you. So like even 20, I was considering, I was like, well, 20 is a lot better than 36. I should be thinking about this. And she was saying this was the best thing smoking. But then I reached out to my dad, who thankfully didn't give up on me. And I was just like, man, I'm stuck in a situation. And he's just like, I'm going to help you out this one last time, but this is it. And he ended up paying $10,000 for a paid lawyer who was able to advocate for a better deal. They got 10 years, but just, think about the individuals that don't have that dad that's willing to cough up 10,000. That's probably why they're still sitting inside of in the prison facilities, is they don't have, money to get a good lawyer to handle their case. It's just a huge, unfortunate situation for some folks who aren't able to afford it. Just getting it down to 10 was through the support of my father. I'm super thankful for him.
Bro, for sure. For sure. And it's not lost on us. The perspective and the gratitude and the thankfulness you have to be in a scenario like that. You're right. There's guys that we met the other day that it doesn't play out that way. And we'll share a story with you that sort of brings that to light. I mean, did you know walking in on day one, it was 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Walking into,
so all that happened before. Yeah. right?
Yeah.
So that takes an incredible load off. All right. So here's why we're there, right? So we give you Victor's story, what ultimately landed him in the Monroe Correctional Complex, just north of Seattle, Washington, for 10 years. So we've got a mutual friend, Leonofsky. He was on the show with Victor before. You guys go back, listen to that episode, because they talk a lot about their friendship, how they became friends, and where they met. And they met through a program called Defy Ventures. Defy Ventures is in multiple states, but has presence in the state of Washington in the Monroe Correctional Complex. And what they do is provide a mentorship and an entrepreneurial training program for men on the inside. And the best way for me to explain is it's an external outreach program to men on the inside. And part of what they do is they go through a multi-month course, textbooks to learn about entrepreneurship and to really how to, if and when they're able to be released, to really get control of their life and to be a productive member of society. And it's your story, right? How your elevator pitch for who you are, how you introduce yourself in a minute, right? Your resume, how you can list all the things you do. By the way, a lot of these guys go in at 18 years old. Their jobs, their only jobs on their resume are jobs they've had when incarcerated. How do you package that up? Volunteer work they've done, training they received. And then the last part that we got to do was, in the last part that they do, is they write out a business plan, right? What can you do from a business standpoint? And these men go through this multi-month training process. They can either fail or graduate from it, right? Not everybody graduates from it. You are a graduate from it. And I got to think that helped propel you. And so part of that program is to then have external mentors come in for a day for this 6-hour session and hear these guys, meet them, talk to them, right? Hear their introduction, look at their resumes, and go over their business plan. But check this out. The last time that this program was actually in those facilities was March of 2020. And you guys don't need me to remind you what happened in March of 2020. Victor leaves that facility in the fall of 2019, right? But by the grace, he's able to get out before that. March of 2020, men are in the middle of this Defy Ventures entrepreneur and training program, and COVID hits. Everyone leaves. You guys will be back in 3.5 weeks. 3.5 years later, on this Wednesday, the 23rd of August, 2023, we go back in. They finally get to go back in. So, Victor, that in and of itself is incredible, right? This amazing program that's helped you on the inside be prepared for when you came out. It gets shuttered like so many other things. God, it's got to be tough. It has to have been tough for the guys that were going through that.
No, yeah, for sure. As you mentioned, some of the guys, they don't get like visitors on a regular basis. They don't have people that come to see them. So we're probably the first people that they've seen, in many years since 2019, or even before that, before some of them. It's crazy to put that into perspective that, they're locked down, and you just imagine seeing their loved ones, their wives, their kids, they're no longer able to come back into the facilities because of COVID. So just a troubling time. I did remain in contact with individuals, during that time, but they weaponized COVID a lot in there, and it's a just tough time to be incarcerated.
I mean, think about it, right? And it's where like part of this experience of going in there is really trying to put yourself in these guys' shoes and to be able to stand across from them. I think it helps. But imagine already being so alone. By the way, you're in a place with 20,000 men. That's how many men are in this Monroe Correctional Complex spread across their different buildings, right. 20,000 men. But you're so alone. You're still so alone, right? You're reduced down to a number, right? All of your rights taken away, really to break you down. And then to have that thing hit, and then that little bit of external that you do get through programs like this, yanked away. It's a hell of a time, man. Hell of a time for those guys. I wish one of the things we didn't do is really talk to the guys about that side of it, but we were just so busy doing so many other things. So shout out to Defy Ventures, right? Leo, Andrew Glazier, and those guys for running just an amazing program. And Leo reached out and invited a bunch of guys to attend. And he's an F3 brother of ours. We know him as Pure Lead. And he invited a bunch of local F3 guys, and he popped me a note. He said, "Hey man, listen, I know it's a long way to come. I'm working to get Victor there. I'm working to get a bunch of F3 guys there from Seattle. I feel like given the stuff you do with the podcast and everything, just if you can get out, if you can get yourself out here would you come be a part of this? And I looked at the schedule and it was clear. And I called my brother who lives in Seattle and it was clear for them. And I said, we got to be a part of this. We got to be a part of going in and helping these guys. So the day looks like, we'll start talking about what the day look like, right? And then we're going to share some stories as we unpack. And really, we're just going to walk you through it because I think it's just important for folks to hear it. We got to share this with people that haven't seen what we've seen. So the night before we do a briefing, right? We all go get pizza, Mod Pizza, where Victor's first job was at a Mod Pizza.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty incredible. So that's gotta be cool for you to go back to one of those.
Yeah.
Right? Do that. So we ate some pizza, which was great. We briefed, we got a sense for what we were going to do the next day. We got up Wednesday morning. I led a killer F3 workout that Victor was at. So we got a good sweat on. We got our minds right for the day, which is awesome. And then we all kind of went our separate ways, got cleaned up, and then we head about an hour north of Seattle, 45 minutes, hour north of Seattle to where this Monroe Correctional Facility is. And it's sort of just beautiful, man, beautiful part of Washington. You drive up that way. As you pull up, it's exactly what you think it's going to look like, right? Big buildings all over this big area, barbed wire fences everywhere, guard towers everywhere. I mean, it's sort of out of central casting. We're going to this one, it's a massive facility. Remember, 20,000 incarcerated men there, right? We go to this one building that's a part of it. Twin Rivers building is where we're at, where we're going to meet with these guys. We go into the main front lobby area. We give our ID cards. We hand them our keys. At this point, we're in clothes, no watches, no phones, our ID card in our pocket because that's our way in and out. That's all we're taking in. No red shirts allowed. No khaki pants allowed. No camo allowed. No gray sweatshirts. My first thought was, no gray, no khaki. I bet the men are going to be in gray and khaki. They're clothes on the inside. For the EITs, you're going to hear Victor and I call them EITs probably for the rest of our conversation, entrepreneur in training, right? We're giving empowering language to these men instead of calling them prisoners or inmates or whatever, right? So all the EITs, white shoes for the most part, khaki pants, different kind of khakis, jeanish khaki, gray sweatshirts. So that made clear for me. The red shirt thing, my first thought was, okay, this has got to be gang related. Nobody's wearing red shirt. You're not going to wear a red set into here. But then I saw a handful of dudes that looked like they were maintenance workers who were wearing red shirts and khaki. And I was like, maybe it's that reason. So why no red?
Yeah, no, exactly that. They have individuals who are typically on the work crew that will wear red shirts. So they don't want you switching out red shirts with them and getting out of prison. So it's just a security thing.
Okay. So that, all right. So that the second I saw those guys, that made sense as well. And I can understand the no camo thing and all that. So, but those are our sort of rules going in, right? So we didn't even really, I mean, there was some couple clocks, but you don't have your watch on, you don't have your phone. It was strange. I always have my Garmin on and I'm always got the phone. So just to be disconnected like that was interesting. Remember, there's about 30 of us. We're going in to serve about 17 dudes. So we got to go through a series of checkpoints, security doors. These doors lock behind you. This door locks in front of you. You wait there. They unlocked those. We walked across, not very far, 100 yards across a courtyard. And then you go into this sort of the main building. When you walk in there, again, what you would expect, big glass windows, 3 or 4 security guards behind those windows, and they've got all the screens, right? They're the way in and out. And then to our right, another set of security doors. And on the other side of the doors is this, what I would call a small cafeteria, multi-purpose room. That's where we're going to be for the day. There's ultimately 2 rooms that we have access to. And what struck me first was, yeah, this is real. We are going into prison. They're not bringing them into some secure area. Like, we're headed in because those guys have access to that room for other activities when we're not there. We're going in. But then I look over to my right and Leo's there at the end of a line and he's got a microphone and he's cheering us on. And the guys inside, the EITs, are clapping and cheering. It's like a party to welcome us. And I was like, I didn't expect that at all. Had you seen that from times you've done that before?
Well, yeah, I was on the other end of that. I
didn't know if it was a new thing, right? But you've seen, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just it's a way to welcome the guests coming in. They made the trip to spend the day with us. So yeah, we just want to give them a warm welcome. And yeah, I definitely felt
we're high
different being on the other side, but yeah, high fiving and all that.
It was wild.
It brought the energy just,
and I'll tell you what it did. Right. It brought the energy and it brought the nerves down. Right. Cause I mean, like, look, I felt perfectly safe the entire time, but you're also like, this is pretty fucking crazy, man, to be doing this. Yeah. So that helped, right? Brings the nerves down. Everybody's excited. You do all that. And we all kind of make our way in. But then the very first guy I see, and I have a sense, look, I know I'm going to see black, white, Hispanic, Pacific Northwest, sort of Native American kind of, I'm going to see all kinds of guys. The very first guy I lock eyes with and get a physical look at has a shaved head, a massive tattoo on the back of his head, and 2 visible swastikas tattooed on his arms. And I'm like, here we are. Like, here we are. That's as real as it's going to get, Victor. That's my man, Will, right? It was as real as it's going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. That part was shocking moment. Shocking, not shocked, but it's like, I'm such a privileged person, right? You're in it. I've only ever seen that on American History X and on, Scared Straight TV shows. But to come face to face like that was a wild moment at the beginning, like right away. And you're right. You're like, wow, okay, here we are. It's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, okay.
Because,
so that's
I knew a lot of the individuals walking through that line. So for me, it felt like more like a reunion. It's like, hey, hey.
Yeah. How many of those guys had you? I only met one guy who was relatively new there, had only been there for a year, had about 3 or 4 more left in front of our boy, Matthew Magnet. We'll talk about him later. He's got an incredible idea, this guy. How many of those guys of the 17, maybe not a full head count, but you knew quite a few of them?
I'd probably say like 7 to 9.
Wow. Yeah. So almost, more than half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost half. All right. So we go in, right? The very first thing we do is we sort of all sit in these chairs and we're all co-mingling, right? It's all good. Co-mingling, talking to these guys. That was when I was kind of hanging, talking to Will a little bit. And then us as the volunteers have to introduce ourselves. So first of all, they make us dance up the middle of the chairs to like go up there. So that was totally ridiculous, but it was nice, right? Cause we're just laughing and bullshitting. I'm talking to Harrius, right? We're making fun of people like who are dancing funny. It is a smart way to kind of get everybody just into it. We introduce ourselves very shortly, and then they go through what the day is going to be like. And essentially it looks like this. And I described it before. We're going to do basically 3 main things with these guys. We're going to get to know them. We're going to hear their mission statement, who they are. They've been working on it. We're going to look at their resumes. We're going to hear their business plan. So we do the first part. And very early in the day when Victor sat down, I said, hey man, would you be my buddy for this? Because I could see we got more of us than them. We're going to partner up, and two volunteers are going to work on each EIT during these segments. And Victor was like, yeah, bro, let's do it. And I thought, you know what, that'll be awesome. Right. So we partnered up. We had our first 2 guys come through to tell us a little bit about themselves, which was absolutely amazing. The first guy we met with was this guy, Anthony. He called himself Articulate Anthony, right? Mm-hmm. And because we all do use superlatives. I was Bold Brian. I think you were Valuable Victor. First names only. You guys can understand, right? First names only. We're not saying exactly where we work, just that kind of stuff. This guy, Anthony, sat across from us. And Anthony's been in there for 18 years, I think he had told us.
Yeah.
I think with quite a few more to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe longer. Yeah. Longer. I didn't ask Anthony what he did. I wasn't concerned about that. And some of the guys we found out just by conversation. You would have thought I was talking to a public speaker who's been on a speakers bureau tour for years, an owner or manager, CEO of a company. I mean, this guy, so bright, so sharp. He's been in the Toastmaster series there. He's going through the Defy program. I mean, this guy was, I was like, I shouldn't be so surprised, but it was just, my first takeaway was like, dude, this guy's so buttoned up and so sharp.
Yeah, no, Anthony, he was I met him when I first started off my sentence back in 2012. And just really thankful for individuals that were like him. He just already had a sharp mindset on him, and he was more of exemplary incarcerated individual. He was taking all the programs, and even though he had a bunch of time left, he didn't have a release date at that time. He went to court recently, but still he wanted to find ways to give back, despite having all that time, despite never getting out of prison. He was always encouraging folks to sign up for classes and stuff like that. That's the type of people that we needed more of. So just thankful for everything that he's been able to do over the years. And despite him not getting out, like that's huge. Yeah. He's one of the ones that influenced me personally to continue to take my college courses. He was teaching a math class He was a incarcerated individual teaching a math class, and he made it more relatable. He's just like, hey, you sold drugs in the past before, all right? So how do you add these two things? He just made it more relatable for individuals that were wanting to pursue education, and then just kind of encourage folks. So he's definitely a true leader, somebody that we need more of.
I know he really meant a lot to you. You got a chance to speak before we left, and just the way that you talked about him and referenced him, it seemed like he was one of those guys that maybe early he put a wing around you, or just it was clear that he left a legacy for you. And part of, I know, and you didn't say this, but I can assume that part of your drive to give back and to continue to stay straight is to honor all that guy poured into you.
For sure.
One of the things he said to us that really struck me, and I've been telling a lot of people about this, was he said, so in this, he was part of where for a minute, he basically was going to introduce himself to us. Like, say you got an elevator pitch, right? Or you're sitting down for a job interview before you tell me about yourself. So he tells us about himself, and then he very politely and smartly says, now, obviously, because you're meeting me here, I made a big mistake in my life. But he goes, but this is the key part. But let me tell you what I've been doing since then. And then he goes right into all the things you just mentioned. And I thought, adherence, right? Awareness of what you've done, regret and sorrow for what you've done. But also, there has to be a moment where that does not have to define you, right? And I think far too many of us maybe think these guys going to prison, right? Like they did this thing, like that's what they are. That's bullshit. It's not the case. Because to a man that we met there, that's not who they are, right? A mistake can't define everything you ever are for your whole being. And the way he just said, listen, obviously, because you're meeting me here, I made a mistake. But let me tell you what I've done since then. Toastmaster, teacher, speaker, mentor, entrepreneur in training. I mean, the guy's got a ton going for him in a place where it's hard to have a lot going for you. It was incredible to meet him.
Yeah, really good people.
Yeah, I know he meant a lot to you. That's for sure. I could tell that. I can tell that for sure. Who was our other guy that we met in that one? So then we had Terry, right? Terry was our second one to come through. Terry, man, I don't even know where to start with Terry. And I hope you guys don't mind. We're just going to tell you about all the folks we met, because I think that's part of the important part of the day. Terry's an older guy. Terry's probably in his 60s would be my guess based on the math.
Yeah.
Terry's been there for 40 years. And I don't know that Terry has a release date. I don't know. You might know. I couldn't tell.
I think he wasn't getting out.
I don't think he's getting out.
If it was extended.
Yeah. And I don't know what Terry did to get there. You might. And we don't even, and I don't either. And that was not one where it came up. And I'll share with you a few guys where it did. Terry, it did not. Here's what struck me about Terry. Older gentleman, probably early 60s. He's been there for 40 years. He's got to be late 60s, because I was doing some math. Here's what he told me. He's been there for 40. He's been married for 53. His wife, my wife, right? His wife on the outside. He's got some deal now where, whether it's because of years or age or because he actually is married, she can come for some extended like weekend visits. And I think he can see her pre-COVID, now post as well. I don't know how regularly, but they can see each other, right? And they're able to have communication. So first of all,
those are called trailer visits. So if you are married, I think you get to see her twice or three times a year.
Twice or three times a year. And just the two of them in there? I'm going to ask them. I'm going to ask the question everybody's thinking, right?
That's how some of the babies were made.
Right. Everybody's thinking, okay, if they're going to be in the trailer alone, like, all right, finally he can reconnect with his wife. Great. I'm glad he's granted that opportunity a few times a year. And you think, guys, 40 years, like the guy was incredibly positive. And so here's more of his story. They've been together ever since, right? Like he talked about his wife. He has no release. He has found his spiritual life and been renewed in Jesus Christ and his creator. And this man on a typewriter types up blog posts. It's called the nightcandlemeditations.com. You can go to it. I went to it today. He types up blog posts about spirituality with scripture verses. It's devotionals. He gives them to his wife. She puts them on the blog. This guy, and he was nervous to sit down and tell us about himself. I could just tell he had it all typed up. But the fact that he still believes so much and still finds something to believe in when he's in a place that a lot of that's been taken away from him, that to me was incredible. Your thoughts on just meeting him? Or you probably had met him before.
Oh yeah, well no, that was my first time meeting him for sure. But I was surprised that he's been down that long, and it sounded like he still has forever and a day. What I was impressed was just, yeah, he is totally into the Defy program. He actually, you forgot to tell him about the business cards that he had for us.
God, dude. So he wants to
literally
make little
typed up
tiny,
some,
right? Yeah, his business plan. You can jump back in, right? His business
yeah,
plan is to build tiny homes. That's what he wants to do. Go ahead.
yeah. So he had these business cards made for us. He's like, I'm pretty sure he's handing them out to all the volunteers. But yeah, he's just like,
Yep.
here's my business card, and he did it on his typewriter, like just the thoughtfulness, like, all right, well, I don't got access to like real business cards. I can't just have my business card sent in. But yeah,
If you're
there
if
it
you're
goes.
watching, yeah, if you're watching on the YouTube channel or online or watching on ngbn.tv, there he is right there. Redemption Way, tiny homes. Terry. His wife
Yeah.
brought him that little picture. That's glued on here, guys. It's not printed. He glues those on. He types them up. He's got some scripture and some thoughts on the back. He wrote this, right? This was the first thing we got when we were in there. Can't take contact information, right? We can't exchange contact. Okay, got it. That's fine. But Terry gave us this. I'll keep this forever.
Yeah. So yeah, just really impressed with what they're able to come up with there. Despite their resources, they still do outreach to their families to get make things happen. It just shows that he still has will to continue the fight. So
Yeah, he
gotta
does.
respect Terry for that.
Here's what you're going to read, the kind of stuff if you go to Night Candle Meditations. As a responsive person of understanding and compassion, I search out my neighbor's cause by the light of inspiration to be feet for the weary, guiding eyes for those who lack vision, and extending helping hands where needed. What a guy. So that was Terry. Terry was awesome. Terry's got a lot of time to go. Terry's been in there for a long time.
Yeah.
Terry to me seemed rather rehabilitated and ready to get to work. Seemed to me like could be a productive member of society on day one. I don't know what he did, but I sat across from that guy, and that man seemed like somebody that I don't know. There is an underlying theme through this that you'll hear where Victor and I will talk about the amount of time some of these guys have and what they're facing, and you might be wondering what I'm wondering. Why? Why so long? Why so long in a system that wants to just keep them in there? This industrial prison complex that we've created in our country, to me, after being in there for 6 hours, meeting the men I did, hearing their stories, seems to me like it's a little too big. That's an underlying theme. That's something we're gonna have to unpack and talk more about, and maybe even get into some criminal justice reform conversations maybe for another day, because I want to share the stories of these men. But man, a guy like Terry, I was like, what? Seems to me there's got to be a path for him to get out of here. But I mean, we don't have all the details, but from what we saw, that's a guy ready to get to work if given the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guy deep in his faith who has been atoning for his sins since the day he did them. I know that much. Okay. That was Terry. All right. So then I'm going to go in chronological order to tell you guys what we did next, right? Because then we had to do the resume thing. Then we had to do the business coaching thing. And we had to have
We
lunch.
did something
Before that.
before that.
Before that, we did the most impactful thing of the day, right? So
Yeah.
before lunch, we did an exercise called Step to the Line. And maybe you've done this in a corporate setting or in a business. I've heard of these before. I've never done one. EITs, 17 of them all in one line. All the volunteers in another line were probably 3 to 4 feet apart from each other. Blue pieces of painter's tape. The director, Andrew, is going to read a series of statements. And if it's true for you, you step to the line, right? And it's really a way to see what we have in common, to see where our differences are, and to be real in front of each other and to admit things. And it's everything from, I was nervous about coming here today. A lot of people stepped up, right? This is my first time in prison. A lot of people stepped up. All the way down to, I was raised by both of my parents my entire life as a kid. You can see disparities, right? You can see differences. I was raised in a single parent household. I never met one of my parents. I was born into poverty. Violence was a part of my everyday life growing up. I was dropped out or kicked out of high school, right? So now you see a lot of differences. A couple of the incredible moments in the entire experience was amazing. Was on the volunteer side. I was kicked out or flunked out of high school. Tall guy, bald head, really nice suit, really buttoned up, stepped up. All the EITs looked down the line. Whoa. I've been convicted of and done time for a violent crime. 2 guys down from me, 5'4", 120 pounds, 130 maybe. Middle Eastern dude, nice clothes, cleaned up, steps up to the line. EITs look down. Whoa. So there's things that we have in common. And then clearly there's a lot of things that just showed me, obviously, the environment that those guys have come from and how hard it is to break that cycle. And I look across the line and I think almost all you dudes grew up without a dad. You're an outlier, bro, in that group, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening now while you're in here? So that was just, I mean, I got emotional a little bit. And it's everything from I feel shame about things I've done. I've narrowly escaped. I've done things that could have gotten me convicted of a crime.
That's a tough one.
Right? You're like, well,
you're
shit.
surprised with all the volunteers. You just be like, oh, well, I mean,
Right.
they got lucky. They didn't get caught for what they did.
You know what I mean? So that step to the line thing is something I'll remember forever. Your thoughts, having now done it on both sides of the tape.
Yeah. No, to be honest, this is probably like my 7th or 8th time doing this exercise. And I always say that I'm not going to tear up, but I tear up every single time. Just because some of those questions get deep, just I'm still dealing with, forgiveness and
still, that was a tough one. Yep.
Yeah, and like it still resonates with me even after those years. And I'm, thinking, hey, I'm going to be free. All that's going to go away. No, those things still come up. And it's just a huge reminder that like I'm still dealing with. I still got some work to do. I mean, there isn't no right or wrong answers. Everyone deals with these things differently. But yeah, just for it to come up again, it definitely it's powerful. You've seen what it's able to do to the room, and then they play the music in the background that doesn't.
They got sort of a soft emotional
that
music.
doesn't help, but yeah, man. Like one of the things they did have a rule where we couldn't give individuals hugs, and that were incarcerated, the EITs. And we weren't able to give them any hugs. Like a lot of the times, I just wanted to reach over that line and
so true.
Just give them a good old hug. All I was able to offer was a handshake, or I put my hand over my heart to
sort of respect.
Just be there. But it was tough. I think a lot of them I was able to like just reflect on being on the other side. Before I wasn't able to say that I was a parent. So like when that question came up, it was like, okay. But also just trying to think about the future and, being the single family homes where folks grew up in, and just like not trying to have that happen, being a new parent myself. So there's just a lot of reflection, and overall just a really powerful exercise.
Yeah. I have worked and will work hard for 11 cents an hour. That's what the guys getting paid on the inside for their jobs. Like just the
that was a tough one.
and that's why it's like, well, I suppose this is pretty life changing. I'm like, you're damn right, because I better not forget that. Right? Like I better not forget that. Like, dude, my back today is super sore. I did something, I tweaked it the other day, but you know what? I'm going to go home, sit on the couch, watch TV, drink a beer. Like I'm fine. It's fine. So that's an incredible experience. So we break for lunch after that, right? I'm going to introduce you to a guy who we also did the resume building with, but I'm going to talk to you about the conversation I had with him over lunch, because this guy now too. Leo, right? Mm-hmm. So Leo has been in there for, maybe Leo was 17 years. All that is somewhat irrelevant, I suppose, at this point. Leo's got a pretty incredible story. So Leo married a woman. Leo had 3 sons before. They basically end up with 4 or 5 sons in the home, and one is very young. And Leo is accused of shaking baby syndrome for the youngest, who tragically passed away in their home. His other children, from what I've been told, testified that he didn't do it, that the kid fell and got hurt. But that's the reason why he's there. He was convicted of that. And so he's got to have a long time, would be my guess. And we could probably go look it up if we really wanted to. So he's got a long time. And when you look at Leo, and I'm going to put a video in the show notes here, because you can meet him, and I'll tell you why you can meet him in a second. The dude looks scary as shit, right? He's big. He's Hispanic, Native American, Pacific Northwest kind of feel to him, right? Hispanic for sure. He's got a scar that runs along his eye like this under the bottom of his eye. And when we met him, he's been bald before, but he was rocking the sort of back hair, kind of native hairstyle. And he says he's doing that out of honor to his heritage, where he came from. So he looks scary as shit, right? I mean, it's just, he does. That's what he looks like. Tattoos and stuff. So we sat down for lunch. We're talking, man, get to know him. We're eating. They fed us pretty well on that day. The guy's like, food's usually shitty. This is great. I'm so glad you guys are here. Spaghetti, meat sauce, all this stuff. Made pretty well. Right. So we're having lunch. And he gets so passionate because I said, tell me what kind of things you doing here. So this guy's a part of a program that they have at the Monroe Correctional Complex where they train Labrador retrievers to be service dogs for paralyzed or disabled individuals. And these are not service dogs for like PTSD. These are for if you physically need help. This dog is trained to be your arms and legs, help you put your clothes on, help you put your socks on, like all these things. Amazing stuff. And there's a program called Summit Assistance Dogs. And if you go to their Facebook or their YouTube channel, Leo's on there. You can meet him. You can meet our friend Leo now. Because I went back and watched it. I said, hey, I got to send this to people. You can meet, this is my guy. Right. So he lights up telling us about all the work he's been doing to train these dogs. And his story is this. One day he was walking back from lunch and he looks over and he sees another inmate who is leaning down and hugging a dog. And the dog is loving all over him. And mind you, in this correctional facility, these men are not allowed to hug anyone. And my guess is, and you can probably confirm, Victor, it's to take that emotional connection away, right? You just, it's not allowed, right? Is that the reason why?
Yeah. Yeah.
So imagine that, right? You're in there. That's why you feel so alone, right? You can't have any kind of connection like that. So he looks over, he sees this guy loving on this dog and he's like, I want that. What is that? How do I become a part of this program? And he finds out there's a program in there where these guys are given these dogs at a young age and they put them through this very rigorous training program. It's the first of a multi-phase training program for these Labradors to then go serve these people. So Leo now and his cellmate, his cellie, have a 8-week-old lab in a crate in their cell. They're responsible for feeding, walking, tracking its meals, tracking its poops, tracking its sleep, and then running them through this training program. Not every dog makes it on to the next iteration, but most of them do. And they have a chance to find out if they do. And I think they keep them for 8 to 12 weeks or something like that. So he told us all about this. I mean, he's so passionate about it. And I said, well, I know what this guy's business plan is going to be if and when he gets out. And he's like, yep, dog training, dog care, dog grooming. I mean, like he's perfect for it. He's perfect.
He's got the experience. How much were they paying him? Did he tell you?
He might have been 40 cents an hour for that. No, you know what? That program he doesn't get paid for. That's strictly volunteer. He gets paid for other jobs that he does, but that one's strictly volunteer. I'll share one more story with you, then I'll tell you about the rest of our interaction with him. I said, well, Leo, man, that's awesome, right? Because you get the love of that dog and the care, but like, do you ever grow attached to them? And he said, yeah, you know what? Early I did. He's trained 27 dogs now. He said, earlier I did, but one day a family came in who the dog I trained was delivered to their child who is paralyzed. And if the family wants, they can come in and meet the inmate. I'm going to use the word inmate here because they're not part of, this. He's not EIT at this point. They can meet the guy who trained their dog if they want to. He goes, the second I met that kid, that 9-year-old kid who was paralyzed, that I trained the dog that now assists him, I got so much purpose in my life. And yeah, I miss them when they leave, but I get another one to train. And now I know that I'm purpose driven. I thought, man, what a perspective.
That's powerful.
Right?
There's a lot in that. Yeah, that's awesome.
And there's more of those kinds of things going on than I ever knew. That dog training program is a great example. There's a massive garden outside in one of the courtyards that was built during COVID that is feeding multiple food shelters in and around the Seattle area. Like these men inside there have done bad things and they'll admit that they've made mistakes, but they're also impacting society from in there, training these dogs, feeding the homeless and the foodless across their area. That's a story you guys need to hear. You need to know that. And then the last thing with Leo was, and we helped him with his resume because we got his resume. He tells us all stuff about the dogs. And then his dog experience is down. We're like, bro, you got to move it. So Victor and I are literally like, he's taking notes. We're like helping him. That felt really great to be able to help him with that. I know it probably felt. How'd that feel for you?
Yeah, no, it felt good. There's some valuable feedback that I felt we were able to give to everybody. I think we had a dynamic
We talked
partnership.
to a lot of different kind of guys, man. Yes, we were a
Yeah.
dynamic duo, no doubt, and because of you. But we got to talk to a lot of different kinds of guys. The last thing Leo sort of left us with, other than at the end of the day, they have all the EITs give out these gratitude cards. They give them, I don't know, 6 of them, and then they choose the volunteer they want to give it to. I got Leo's right here. We'll keep that forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You know what, man?" He's like, "Look, I get it. I'm in a tough spot. Um, I'm going to be here for a long time, but I've got purpose." And he goes, "And I'm excited to go back to my cell." He said, "How many guys could tell you they look forward? The cell's the worst part. There's nothing to do in there. Like, at least when you're out, you have activities and stuff." But he goes, "But I got an 8-week-old puppy waiting for me in my cell." And so a little bit of comfort and care for Leo, which I think helps his heart too.
Mm.
Check out Summit Assistance Dogs, guys. They're doing amazing work. And by the way, you can go donate to them because they're a nonprofit and they probably need your help. So that was Leo. I'm going to tell you about one more guy before I talk about the other guys that we helped. And this was Scott. Scott was across from me when we were doing Step to the Line. I probably shook hands with Scott no less than 20 times throughout the course of the day. So your point about them being just so grateful to finally see somebody and to get some sort of interaction, 1 or 2 handshakes would have been enough. Scott needed just that hand touch, man, that handshake, just that little bit. And he was on fire for F3. We were telling him about F3. He's like, "I want to do that." So he was pretty amazing. Scott got into an altercation, was walking away from a fight, got pistol whipped from behind. This is the story he told me now, right? And I'm taking him at his word. Pistol whipped from behind, ripped his ear off. He turned around, wrestled the gun away from the guy who hit him, shot him twice. Because he shot him twice, they said it's no longer self-defense. He's got 60 years or something. Killed the guy. Mistakes, right? Mistakes in a moment. Victor's could have been way worse. Yours could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Could have killed multiple people in there.
Yeah, even Scott. I know Scott for a long time as well. He used to be hardcore criminal when he first entered the prison system. He's part of a biker gang and all that good stuff. And then,
but he hadn't gotten caught enough, right? And then that one thing happens. And that's what puts him over the edge. So my guess was, I was like, I bet he had a rap sheet. And then this happens. And then they're like, "Well, dude, that's it for you."
Right.
He was a hardcore dude. He was like the nicest, sweetest guy we talked to.
Yeah. Had some time to think about it for sure. No, he's made a lot of transformation even since I met him when I first started my sentence. So yes, it's great to see that. You know,
there was a question about forgiveness, and I stepped off the line, and he stepped up, and he grabbed me after, said, "Hey man, why are you having a hard time forgiving?" And I was like, "I don't know. I shouldn't." He goes, "Yeah, you shouldn't. Look at me. I've forgiven." I was like, "Bro, that was awesome. What a gift." All right. We talked to Jogging James. James is our other resume guy. Young guy, super young, tall, thin, didn't look like he should have been in there at all. If I had to pick one dude who didn't look like a dude that should be in there, James. He looked like a computer nerd.
Yeah.
No offense to my computer nerd, right? But that's what he looked like. But he's big into JavaScript, coding, and all that. He had some really good experience on his resume, but he was holding himself back. He had some self-doubt, some confidence issues. He had some qualifying language in there he didn't need. So you and I helped him massage that a little bit. He said, "I'm junior software coder." I'm like, "Take junior out. That doesn't matter. You don't have to say that." Right. So I think we helped him out quite a bit to get that stuff. I hope he gets a chance to get out because that kid looked like he could do some things.
Oh yeah, no, I like James. He had a lot of potential. I mean, he said he was like coding on his free time at like his work computer, which is
he's like making apps. He was doing a bunch of coding stuff that helped the prison.
Yeah. And yeah, one thing, I think we had those sweet sheets that we were passing around after each round. And yeah, with those sweet sheets, he was just like that he appreciated the feedback that, you know, like he said that I told him that he could make it in the tech industry. You know, because that's what I did. I went through the same program while I was incarcerated. I didn't, you know, have any prior coding experience. We didn't have no internet or anything in there, and I still came out a software engineer. Never would I thought, you know, I'd go into prison and come out a software engineer. So for me to see James still, you know, trying to pursue his career in tech is awesome to see, you know, and it's good to see folks, actually get out and make a career out of it. So I'm sure that inspired James a lot.
Yeah. So after every interaction, we all were given a sheet of paper like this, kind of like a yearbook, right? And we'd exchange with the EIT. They'd give it to us, and we just leave them a little note, right? Right. Thank you for your feedback on my resume. I think the changes will give me the best chance getting a great job. I was our boy, James. I'll keep this forever, right? I'll call these things. That's a pretty cool part. I'm glad you brought that up. I'd kind of forgotten about that. It's right here in front of me. Right, so those are the two guys that we did our resumes with, right? So we in total got to work with 6 dudes. We got to meet pretty much everybody, but we got to work with the 6. All right. So let's see. We need to talk about Matthew and we need to talk about Arius. Let's talk about Matthew first. Magnet Matthew. So Matt's been in there for a year. He's got 3 or 4 to go. He has a pretty light sentence. He's looking at 5 years. Older guy, kind of no hair, long beard, which he must have had before he got in there. And I think he got mixed up in some improper business dealings or something, was my sense. You hadn't met him before because he got in after you got out.
Yeah.
This guy is so smart. He's got a plan and a strategy and drawings and graphics where he's talking about building a coil and magnet energy source for HVAC systems that he would then build and sell so that you don't have to use regular power to power your AC in the summer and your heat in the winter. Green energy, magnets and coils. I mean, he handed us his designs. I'll be honest with you. I was like, listen, Matt, I'll be honest with you, man. What you're talking about is flying over my head, but let me help you at least from a business plan standpoint, talk about how you can get out there. Right. So I think I served him a little bit in that sense, but dude, his plan, I mean, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see what they're able to come up with. Really, he was thinking about like the pat, just the everything that he put into just thinking about it. He had it all covered. His competitors, he knew how he was going to attract his first customers. Like he had it all laid out. Like in his head or in his mind, he had it, just locked in on, this is going to work.
Oh yeah.
So when somebody has that,
he's full speed ahead. When he gets out, he's full speed ahead. Ain't no stopping.
Somebody has that. Yep, exactly. So I mean, I think we were able to offer him feedback, and it is hard. We're not, in that line of work, but we're still able to provide feedback from, a consumer standpoint. It's like, okay, well, I got an AC heat. Would that provide me value? Hell yeah, it would. So like,
would you want to spend a couple hundred to maybe a few $1,000 to buy this thing versus what your bill is going to be? And, what we were there to do is give him perspective on, hey, man, do a market analysis, right? Know what else is out there in the market, know what the competitors are doing, be thinking about this. And then, the biggest thing that I was, after talking to him a little bit, I got a couple nuggets at him. I said, listen, man, whatever you do, get the right people around you when you do this. And don't let everybody into that circle, especially coming out. And I'm sure that's something that you can probably attest to, in your journeys in coming out, is to get the right people around you. And now it also helps when high impact men like Leonovsky, who helped you go through that program, who graduated through Defy, was waiting there at the gate when you got out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that the sense of community or just having somebody waiting for you, like that says a lot. It's something that's different than just getting out to nothing, no support at all. Grateful for the high impact people that are, extending their hand to try to help out the next person.
Yep. The last guy we got to talk to was Arius. He came walking in, black guy, kind of shaved head, super personable, man. Great talk.
Yeah, I love him.
Big crucifix around his neck. So I was a little surprised they could wear necklaces. I thought that was cool. So get a little bit of individuality from that standpoint. So immediately I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to enjoy talking to this guy. He wants to own a food truck, right? He's a cook. He loves to cook. He loves to cook for people. He loves to cook meat and like savory foods, and he wants to own a food truck. His unique, I'm not going to give you all the details because it's his thing, right? And I don't want anybody to take his idea. I really don't. I'm serious. So I'm not going to give you the full idea, and I'm not trying to be a jerk, but he has this patented way of sealing in the flavor and the sweetness of the food he's preparing, specifically meat dishes, that if this guy, when he gets out, if he gets this thing going, I've never heard of it before, right, V? I've never taste it like this. In fact, I was like, can you cook for us now? And he's
Yeah.
got this trick. I'm not going to tell you the secret ingredient. I'm really not, because I don't want somebody to take his idea. I'm serious. But that dude just wants to get out, make people happy, make good food, own a food truck, and live his life like that. What'd you think of meeting him?
Yeah. Oh man, I was definitely hungry after that
Right?
conversation. You could really sense the disappointment that he wasn't able to give us a taste of this, because he says he makes it up in the unit for all the guys, and he's the same way. He doesn't like sharing his secrets. He's probably making this recipe inside of his house inside of there. But
Right.
yeah, no,
Hey, so can you tell me
it's
something, Victor? How does that
yeah.
work? I'm just right. So he's talking about cooking and being able to make food and all that. Can you take us inside the walls? Like, how does that example work?
Yeah, so we are able to order what they call commissary, which is just a like grocery list that we could buy stuff off of, and they sell all kinds of stuff, obviously marked up really high.
At,
But
at
but
mind you, at earning 11 cents or 40 cents an hour.
right,
Right.
so you have a bunch of stuff that you could order, but then individuals just get creative. They're just like, okay, well, how can we blend these 3 or 4 ingredients to make something saucy. So just about getting creative, and then you get store I think twice a week. So you get order from this grocery list twice a week, and then they do have like microwaves inside of the unit. That's it. There isn't no like stoves or anything like that. Everything that you have to make is with a microwave. You get it heated up. That's all. Most people got like hot pots where you can heat up water and use
Mm-hmm.
that water as well. But the microwaves are there for your use, and then how you cut your meat is with plastic knives. They don't let you have any, sharp knives or anything
Yep.
like that. They're really flexible. Like, yeah, they make sure you don't want to stab anybody with
Sure.
these
Sure.
like knives and stuff. But yeah, you get creative, so then you can share. It's not typically allowed to share food amongst incarcerated
He made it
individuals.
sound like he had a customer base that was
Oh
enjoying
yeah,
what he
no,
was doing.
no, no. But there is the black market. You could always do your thing down there. So especially if you got something in high demand, there's going to be a market in there as well. They barter with coffee and top ramens. That's their form of
Mm.
currency.
He's got a great name for it. Our advice for him was, again, keep that circle close, right? Keep your friends close. And I said, listen, man, get out and start preparing this food before you even get the truck. Get that food out there to as many people as you can. Farmers markets, festivals, parties, whatever. Be making it at home as long as you can. Sock up as much money as you can, and then go get that truck. Get a customer base, get some loyalty, get your brand out there, get people knowing how good it is, and then get the truck versus putting yourself in $20,000 worth of debt, right, to outfit a food truck. So
Yeah,
hopefully that was good advice.
yeah. No, I loved his idea. I got a lot of hope for him.
Yeah.
And excited to see what he does for the graduation. Both of the businesses, I think, just given the feedback that we're able to provide, and I'm sure they'll get feedback,
Mm-hmm.
towards the graduation, but looking to see how it plays out.
So these guys are months into this multi-month iteration of this training. Would you mind explaining kind of what happens for them next as it relates to the Defy program and sort of that graduation?
Yeah, so after the event today, they take the feedback that they were able to get from their business plan, and then kind of apply that into their user research. Typically, if they do have something that they could test out inside of the units, they would be able to do that. Or if not, they'd just try to like send a Q&A to, somebody out on the streets and try to get feedback from
Hmm.
them. But yeah, they continue to work on their business plan. They actually put it down all on paper. How much is it going to cost? What's their break even point? They go into a lot of detail and just like building out your business plan. So by the end, at the graduation, you will have a fully developed business plan that you could share out. And then yeah, they work on the program's a lot more than entrepreneurship. They do work on just personal development, emotional intelligence, how you deal with guilt, anger, and all that stuff. Because we know, in business that it's a lot more than
Mm,
just money. We
that's
are
right.
dealing with people, and how we're able to navigate those spaces. So yeah, just really great program, but the graduation is going to be awesome. They do have the cap and gown that they wear. A lot of, I know I haven't worn a cap and gown. I dropped out of high school in ninth grade. So it's one of the first opportunities that I did have to wear a cap and gown. So that was pretty good. And my dad got to see me wearing it. So just
Mm,
yeah, huge milestone for me. But I know these EITs are also looking forward to the graduation, just showing us all the passion. I mean, you've seen just from this first event how much passion they had coming in. They're going to be excited for this next event. They're going to have a lot more passion,
yeah.
which is hard to imagine.
The guys that make it all the way through graduate towards the end of March. Got to
Yeah,
try to do everything we can in our power. You're down in Texas now, which, by the way, congratulations and congrats on that little 10-month-old baby, man, which I know is a life changer. We got to try to make our way back up for that, because that would be powerful to see
for
those
sure.
guys through. And then, brother, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. We've been there for 6 hours, and that's kind of it. And those guys roll back in, and we walk out the front door.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of the hardest moments for me, honestly. Just like knowing that you have to say bye to these guys, and like I get the opportunity. We all had the opportunity to leave.
Yeah.
They're going back into their same cells that they've been sitting in. Some of them, like as you heard, for 40 something years, if not longer. So it's just allows you to put life into perspective, and it's just a humbling moment for me, because I know like all it takes is one bad move, and I could be back in that situation. So it just gives me, also like inspiration to continue to do better myself. But just as a reflection, it was just great to be able to go in there, and I know a lot of them draw a lot of inspiration from me. They hear my story, especially with Leo. He goes in there once a week, every Wednesday, to train these folks up, and yeah, it's awesome to see that like they're watching.
Hmm.
I mean, despite like me not knowing that, they're listening, they're hearing to like what I'm doing out here in the streets. So for me, that just continues to light a fire under me. It's like, look, it's not just about you. You're doing this for a lot of people. So yeah, just a lot of emotion walking out of there. It's like, man, I want to stay here as much as I can. I felt almost at home, sad to
Mm,
say, but
yeah.
it just I've been spent a lot of years behind there, and developed a lot of good relationships with individuals, as you might have noticed, and it's just tough to say goodbye.
It's got to be tough for you not to hit the hand and pull somebody in. I mean, like
Oh
that
yeah,
you must have been fighting every urge to do that. Cause I had just met you recently in person. That's the first thing I did, grab you, pull you in. Like, it's tough, man. It's tough. And you're right. Like, we just walk on out. And did you ever watch the movie Good Will Hunting? Remember that movie? Matt Damon,
no,
right? Anyways, you guys listening, you might remember. There's a scene where Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are standing there, and Ben Affleck says, the best part of my day is when I walk up to your house every morning, and I hope you're not going to be here. Because Matt Damon was a super smart, like genius, stuck in South Boston, just screwing around, making a lot of mistakes. And Ben Affleck's point was like, you are way too smart. You're way too good. Get out of here. I don't ever want to see you again. Yeah, I'm going to be sad you're gone. You're my best friend, but you got to get out of here. And I liken it to, don't you ever go walking back through those doors to be on their side again, right? And they're probably like, you better not ever come back in here again. And they need you to never come back in there again, unless to mentor to them, because they need to believe it is possible. And it is, because you're doing it now, Victor. You are doing it, right? You are showing them it is possible. And those guys need to believe that I can get out like he did, and I can do what he's
yeah,
doing, right? You are a breath of fresh air in that world for them. And I know you
yeah.
probably think about that probably every day, would be my guess.
No, for sure. And honestly, I think that was like one of the biggest things for me. Like, I've taken a lot of great programs while I was incarcerated, but I think the thing that had the most impact on me to like really change the way that I thought was individuals that were coming back in, that were previously incarcerated. I drew a lot of hope, because I was like, okay, it's possible. Like they're out here doing it, like I could do it. But I also envision myself like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing that they're doing. I'm going to go out there and succeed and come back,
Yeah.
because they did that for me. So you want to continue paying it forward. Yeah, really leave no man behind.
That's right. And leave no man behind. Pick up the six. We're good. We say we do it. We say we pick up the six. We say we leave no man behind, but it's so easy to get caught up in the minutia and the stress and the overwhelming and the detail of our regular everyday life. But what are we doing to help the least of these? And it can happen in your community, but here's what I'm going to challenge you guys. It can happen by finding a program like this. So go to Defy Ventures and see if there's some in your state, or see what's around you. There's correctional facilities all over the country, clearly. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people incarcerated today. There are outreach programs in a lot of those places. They're safe, they're secure. They wouldn't take you in there if they weren't. So you can get off your ass and you can go into a prison like we did and you can give back. And that might not be for everybody, right? So no pressure, no shame if you don't ever do it. I get it. But if you're listening to me and you're like, you know what? I'm looking for something to level up my picking up the six. Go find a program like this. You will gain so much, and what you do for these guys is a drop in the bucket, man. To take 6 hours of our day, of our busy day, to then leave and go get back on my iPhone and jump in the car and go grab a bite to eat and go have a beer with my brother. Come on, man. Come on. We've got it. We're so fortunate. And maybe some of you have made mistakes that you got away with, right? This is a way to go serve a real underserved part of our population. Don't get me wrong. These guys have made mistakes. Some of those dudes in there are bad dudes that should stay in there forever. But some of those guys in there, like the ones we met, are hungry, are fighting, are learning, are faithful, are atoning for their sins on a daily basis, and they'll have to stand at the gates at the end. We don't get to judge. Terry will stand at the foot of the gate, and St. Peter will be there, and they'll decide whether he goes in or not. Not me or you. So I think we've got an opportunity to put leaving no man behind and picking up the six into practice, or find something like this, or just find something in your community to find somebody that's underserved. But the guys that we met, they got a lot out of it. I left with memories I'll have forever, and all these cards, right? The sweet sheet. This is just the beginning. We interviewed a bunch of folks that went in when we got done. I'm going to be sharing a lot of those on the Instagram, right? So go to @pickup the6. I'm going to come up with creative ways to share some of that. I flipped the reaction video very quickly. Victor's in it a bunch. It's on Instagram @pickup the6. It's on LinkedIn. It's on Facebook. Go find it in all those places so you can see just a little bit of what that experience was like. We couldn't take cameras in, obviously, right? Can't take cameras in there. They had one camera. That guy can't get his memory card back for like a week through they scrubbed the pictures. So anyways, my brother, before we go, you've been so gracious with your time, man. Like so gracious. But I wanted just to unpack. I just want to get it all out there. Hopefully you guys have stuck with us throughout this entire episode. Victor, just your thoughts, man, now that it's sort of in the rears a few days, and just what you've been thinking.
Yeah, and once again, my thoughts are just a humbling experience for me. Just it's the why behind what I do every day. You know, it's just getting out and making sure that I'm helping out the individuals that are coming behind me, because it's a lot bigger than myself. And just really appreciate you, Brian, for flying all the way across the country to make an impact like this. I'm sure just along with those cards that you had, you've left a mark on individuals' lives for years and years to come. They're going to remember you for a while. So, as Brian encouraged, if you can find an organization similar to this where you can get involved, highly recommend you step up to the calling.
Well said. My brother, go enjoy that baby. Man, I know it's great, isn't it?
Yeah. No,
it's like, dude, what a gift. What a gift that thing. What a gift that little baby is.
Yeah. No, I'm going to go spend some time with her, probably take her out to the pool, and
she got you wrapped. She's got you wrapped, right, dog? I know it. I got two girls, man. I know. It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how can this little thing control so much of me? Just the beginning.
Gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Proud of you, bro. I love you, man.
All right, Brian, you enjoy the weekend.
All right. That's Victor Sauceda. I'm Brian Jodas. More to unpack. We'll share more stories as we go, but we had to get on here today and do it because we know that you guys are out there doing it as well. Pick up the six. We'll talk to you later.